All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Knollcast. But as always, we'll thank our sponsors, Louisiana Hot Sauce, Tarpon Cellars. Always want to tip the hat to the OG sponsors. TarponCellars.com is the website, and Knollcast will get you, I believe, 20% off your order there. So thank you, as always, for the support that you guys have given our friends out in Napa Valley. And yeah, you're back. Got ourselves a game preview here, a game that I think we can say with a lot more confidence as opposed to 36 hours ago that will, be played at the time, and maybe some winds and rain, but can't see anything at this point that is going to impact a availability for games. So happy that that's played out the way it is, and we can sit here and more or less talk about a preview and not show off some amateur weather skills that we have. So.
Indeed. I believe we do have some prize picks to get to. Unfortunately, I was not able to deliver the winner. I hope I was able to deliver some fun in following along with the cards. But that we did drop on the official Knollcast card, although we got the FSU stuff pretty good, I will say. But I gave out two. The kicker one was absolutely terrible. That's on me, y'all. So we're now 2-2 on the 25-1 shots this year. Still feel like we're going to come out on top, knowing us. So anyway, Prize Picks, you can find it in the App Store, prizepicks.com. You can use the promo code Knollcast, which gets you 100% deposit match for first-time depositors up to $100. Tonight, I've got a fun one, man. I'm ready for this. I actually just put this together right before we went live on the show. Jamari Thrash of Louisville. We know that they like to feed their studs in this Jeff Brom offense. And Jamari Thrash, over 75.5 receiving yards. I like. I think they'll go to him often, go to him on screens, go to him wherever they need to do. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback. They're playing Georgia Tech, and I'm going to go less than 245.5 passing yards for him. Seems kind of weird. However, both receivers are out for Ole Miss. The guy they took from UTSA and the guy they took from La Tech, as is the guy who I thought was the best tight end in the transfer portal, Caden Prescorn from Memphis. He is going to be out another 2 weeks and was a very important piece of what they had planned. Their backup tight end is also out, and Quinshot Judkins has been banged up too. Okay. Lane Kiffin, and they're unhappy with the amount of running success they had against Tulane, and they have Alabama on deck. So I'm thinking that they probably don't want Dart to get blasted here a whole lot if they can, given that they have Bama on deck. So, yeah, I'm going to go Jackson Dart less than 245 passing yards. Remember Roman Hemby from last year?
Absolutely, yes.
Guys, Roman Hemby is a nice DFS type option if you're into these prize pick style stuff. That's Maryland's running back, and they like to throw on the football an awful lot. If you watched JMU beat Maryland last week, beat Virginia last week, the winning play was actually them taking advantage of a freshman linebacker named Robinson, who I believe Florida State did try to recruit last year. UVA's linebackers look like they can be got in pass coverage just from what I've seen so far. So shout out to the Knollcast from Peru. Awesome, Pat. That is, what time is it in Peru? Are they got to be Pacific time, right? I would think.
Yeah, it's maybe what we call mountain time, I think.
Maybe mountain. Okay. All right. I'm sure Pat will let us know in the chat. So we're going to go more than 17.5 receiving yards for Roman of the Maryland Terrapins. Quinn Ewers, less than 3 touchdown passes against Wyoming. Big Quinn Ewers fan, but again, it is Wyoming. They do have mouths to feed in that quarterback room named Murphy and Manning, and that's a pretty lofty number there. So I would go less on that. And then we got a little stack action, little IHOP special here. We're going to go Davis Brin of Georgia Southern and Derwin Burgess of Georgia Southern. Travel up to Wisconsin. Wisconsin kind of got lit up last week by an air raid attack, almost exactly what Georgia Southern runs. Davis Brin, more than 252 passing yards, and Derwin Burgess, more than 13.5 fantasy score. So that's that'll be our show card, and of course we will give out another card involving the Noles once Prize Picks feels fit to put up odds on FSU's game. Now, I'm not taking a shot at our sponsor here on the air. What I'm saying is let's get into this preview because, and again, promo code NOLCAST gets you that 100% deposit match bonus for first-time depositors up to $100. If I ran Prize Picks, I probably also would not put up numbers quite yet for this Boston College Florida State football game because I don't know what the weather's going to be like, and it does matter an awful lot. Noon kick, hurricane or tropical storm or hurricane? What are we going with here?
Looks like it'll be arriving as still maybe a hurricane, but at the lower level of that. Now we'll have to see. Again, I'm not an expert here, but looks like it might hit make landfall somewhere around 80 miles an hour, which we're not discounting at all, but it's not a massive hurricane. And what I hear as I do read the more wise people on this just talk about, the main difference on something like this is the water's so much cooler over there. The water that it travels slows the storm down rather than, when it comes up through the Gulf or something like that and can actually pick up steam and deliver a punch. So not discounting. Okay, so he's basically central time zone down there in Peru is what it looks like. Not discounting the storm, and I'm certainly not the person to listen to, but sounds like it'll be played maybe with some 20 to 30 mile an hour winds and maybe a little bit of rain as if it follows its current track. So
over under on this game is 48. It opened 58. Obviously, it got bet down to like 47, maybe 46 and a half at one point. If you guys have ever bet like a Wyoming game when the winds are like 25 mile an hour, it's basically like it's not impossible to pass the ball, but it's difficult. And the defenses know that it's difficult, and they challenge you to throw the deep ball, and the winds just jack it up. So spread 26, 27-ish. What are we looking at here? Yeah, about 26 and a half, 27, and the total, of course, of 48. So, it's they're thinking like 37-10, roughly, which makes sense. We did not do picks last week, by the way. Like I made sure to put prediction in the title of the YouTube show because people were like, "Wait, you didn't have a prediction?" And I was like, I don't know what to put. I think they'll score more than 41 and a half for sure. But how soon does Mike put in the backups? Is a pretty relevant part of a prediction. But man, 66-3 was good anyway. Red bandana game.
Yeah, not as concerned about that with a noon kickoff and everything else. I mean, obviously Florida State's lost a couple of those. I think they've gotten Clemson during at least one, maybe a couple of them as well in the past. But to me, that just feels like maybe a Thursday night thing or a Saturday night thing. It's not like you're ever going to get an elite atmosphere up there or anything that could ever really be confused with elite, in my opinion. But sleepy nooner, I don't see the red bandana or anything else that comes attached to that being all that impactful.
I think that's fair. It is like if you guys watch the doc on it or like at least find it on YouTube, if you don't know what it is, which I bet like about 99% of the people out there will know what it is. But if you haven't, it's certainly a pretty good story that guy with the self-sacrifice. Let's transition here. Boston. Oh, by the way, Lee Williams. All right, we'll get to that question because that actually ties into the second part of the show. Want to thank our friends at the legendary home loans team, 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan. Chad and Shannon will get you hooked up with the best loan possible for you. I've done it twice. 500 of our listeners have also done so, and it is an awesome experience. Oh, I got some cool stuff. Hold on. Where'd I put it? All right, so Matt Thompson did send me a Noon Game Suck hat, so I can't really use this when I'm on CBS because I'm not sure that like some of our advertisers want because I don't know how well you can read it.
You just see suck.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but it's if you know. I also have something cool that I will debut for the next show. Boston College is 1-1 on the season. They lost at home to Northern Illinois, which then lost to a albeit very good FCS team, an FCS team nonetheless. But Northern Illinois was a 13-point underdog at home to this FCS team. So that's obviously very good for the FCS team. It's kind of embarrassing to lose to an FBS team that then turns around the next weekend and loses to an FCS team. So
Yeah, Northern Illinois, I say this every once or 2 years whenever they come up, but I always have to say this. They're from DeKalb, Illinois, and what are the 2 other things that claim to be from DeKalb, bud? No recollection. That's a toughie. Cindy Crawford and barbed wire. That is their claim to fame, that I can
Okay.
tell you.
I
Yes,
mean, those
absolutely.
are, yeah.
I spent a Christmas, or just after Christmas in high school at a wrestling tournament up there, and, not a place that I necessarily long to return to, but yes.
Once is enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Northern Illinois, I've checked that off my, my life list.
Then they turned around and they had one of those games last week all over the Eastern Seaboard. We had long like storm lightning delays and whatnot. They had one of those where they had a lead on Holy Cross, which is a pretty damn good FCS team, well coached. I think I mentioned that on the show. Like that coach is really good. So don't be surprised if if they gave him a little hell there, and they did actually. But Boston College did hold on to win. BC's offense is like definitely better this year, but it's in a different way. Oh yeah, we have thumbnails now. Shout out to FSU Pat for making some awesome thumbnails for us. So really, really good job on those. I'm look how professional the channel is. This is like Graham mutes as the ice clinks back in his glass. We are in sync tonight. This is professional podcasting. All right, so their offense is much different. They started out playing this other kid at quarterback, Emmett Moorhead, who was their backup last year. They switched to Thomas Castellanos, who, if you guys don't know the name, you should. FSU recruited him basically as like a running. They said athlete, but like I think it was pretty much understood that he can't play quarterback here, so he's basically a running back / maybe Ja'Kai Douglas, like slot type, or maybe a defensive player, if whatever. He ends up going to UCF. And then UCF's receivers coach got hired by BC. He wasn't going to start at UCF as a quarterback. His kid wanted to play quarterback. That's why he didn't go to like an FSU or maybe a Georgia. So when UCF's receivers coach got hired to be the receivers coach at BC, Castellanos followed him, which actually kind of I don't know if you followed what happened to John Rice Plumlee this week, but like he busted up his leg pretty good and is going to miss, I think, at least a month. So he would have been their starter over the McLean kid. Anyway, I don't know how much of the NIU game you watched. They go to Castellanos. They change the offense up a little bit. It's much more run heavy. They're using like a lot of 22 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 backs, quarterback. Their offensive line is much better than it was last year, like a lot better. Mainly because they're not having to play defensive linemen that they moved over in the middle of the week. Mm-hmm. It really was kind of sad last year, just the level of broke that they were on the offensive line. By the way, Dillingham, not to ramble, have you followed this?
No.
Oh, man. Like, I sent our 24/7 Sports Arizona State publisher the Kenny Rillingham video we did from like 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, it's not good when you have this happen this early in the season. But, like, in that game against Oklahoma State, they were already down 4 of their top 7 offensive linemen. And then their starting right tackle, who's maybe their best O lineman, his foot was facing the wrong direction, and they had to cart him off. So now Arizona State, which is not particularly deep to start the year, is basically just in like
what can we do mode.
If Dillingham threatens a bowl there, he should win National Coach of the Year. I think. So yeah. Boston College was kind of in that situation last year. Like they literally had to move defensive linemen over to the offensive line and play them. Like not just for emergency purposes. The emergency was now in the middle of the week. So that's not what they're having to do this year. They're much better on the offensive line. They are not so far a threat to pass the ball at all. Like it is. I know they have some guys who catch the ball, but man, it has not been. You want to play? Guess how many catches their leading receiver has through 2 very contested games. How many yards their leading receiver has?
Ooh, how many yards? I'm going to go 7 catches for 68 yards.
You are close. So in 2 games, their leading receiver has 105 yards.
Okay.
And their leading catcher has 9 catches.
9. Okay.
Yeah. Despite the fact they play a little more heavy personnel, they have not so far thrown the ball to the tight ends basically at all. Like they appear to be just to block so far. Oh, nice job on the JCS collab. Chris McLeod said, very cool.
Chris, great longtime supporter of the Nolecast.
Yes, sir.
Love seeing him. LSU game, Oklahoma game. He seems to be around.
I was texting him the other day. So Castellanos is their leading rusher on the year, the quarterback. I'm not going to say they're running Wildcat, but it's heavy rush. It's heavy quarterback rush. You're going to get a lot of quarterback rush. I think if you're Boston College, you probably are going to try to use the hurricane to your advantage and play this thing as slow as humanly possible. Just, hey, here's 40 runs for us. If the weather's that bad, here's 40 runs for you guys. Don't beat us by 40, right? They'll run some power. They'll run some counter. They'll run some stretch. They do a pretty good number of things. It's all +1 in the run game. I'm kind of curious to see how much actual 4-3 can you play? Are we going to see 3 actual linebackers on the field if you're the Noles? We don't get to see that very much, right? But there are some teams on the schedule you might want to do it against. If Florida gets their tight ends back and healthy at the end of the year, that's more of a heavy personnel-based type team. So, I mean, if you're Norvell, you're using some of these games, assuming you don't go out and mess it up, which you shouldn't. It's kind of cool to be able to harken back. You're okay, we're in the swamp now. 8 weeks ago, we had to play this stuff. How did we do? Did we like it? How did we fit this run out of this look? How did we fit this run out of that look? So I don't want to be disrespectful and claim this is a practice game, because I still think Boston College is they're a top 85 team. They're not in that Bowling Green level, they're probably better than they're probably close to Southern Miss, I think, but just in different ways. Their offensive line is much better than Southern Miss. I think Southern Miss is better defensively in the back end. Also, like I said, they don't pass. Do you think a team that runs predominantly Wildcat quarterback-ish type product is going to be really good when they get behind the sticks and have to pass? No.
Yeah,
they're really dead in those situations. So far this year, again, they've played Northern Illinois and Holy Cross. On passing downs, they are 124th in the nation in success rate. So if you actually get them backed up behind the sticks, it's good night, Irene. But yeah, I think if you're Adam Fuller, this is kind of fun. I mean, not that you want to prep a whole lot for this, but it is nice to be able to get a real game with a real look against something different rather than just 11 personnel spread RPO stuff every single week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that will be interesting how much you see Lundy out there with 4 and 15, and if this is one of the rare cases where a 4-3 is your base defense, or not even your base defense, just something that you see. I mean, to think that was basically a formation that 20 years ago teams would run, I don't know, 85% of the time, bud, and I don't know. Love to see the stat split on that and how much teams have gone away from that, particularly in the last 10 years. But yeah. Anyway, football evolves, football changes, and 4-3 is a reflection of that.
It does. All right, points wise, Vegas's projection of 10, that feels kind of fair, to be honest. I mean, it's just really hard for me to give a good prediction here with the weather. If this goes a couple more miles east and we have 15-mile-an-hour winds or low 20s, you could throw the ball around. If you get legitimate 30+ mile-an-hour winds, just watch. It's just really hard to throw a football in that kind of weather, and especially the defenses will know it. You want to talk a little Boston College defense?
Yeah, this is the strength of the team, in my opinion, defensive line, in particular, and interested to see what these guys look like. And this is, if you're of the fan base that still wants to learn a little bit more about the offensive line, this won't be the ultimate test, but will be another decent test to give you an idea as to where you are going into Clemson.
And again, we'll see who plays on Florida State's offensive line. As we talked about last time, it was pretty obvious that Mo Smith was dinged in the LSU game. They held him out last game, and Darius got some time there in his relief. So that was good to see. Always good to rep. I mean, not good to see that Mo was out, but good to see that you got somebody who could maybe capably play it if you had to have them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Also, 45% rain in this game. It looks like maybe the second half is not quite as bad in terms of the weather. So
yeah, I mean that's the thought. I heard somebody who was getting like their weather projections. It sounded like directly from Delta. Think that by 2 o'clock it could be pretty decent, but
I
again,
use that site.
It's a Thursday, so we'll see.
Oh, what's the name of this site? There's a site. If I find it, I'll drop it in the show notes. There's a site, pilot buddy of mine. You can actually see what the wind is going to be projected, like very specific areas in a city at certain altitudes, like ground level, 10.
Now, why were you ever using the service, bud?
Yeah, I'm a big skydiver.
I wonder where how you stumbled across this. Funny.
Yeah, I do play softball with a couple pilots, so they had also heard of it, but they did not. They were not the ones that introduced it to me.
They weren't trying to figure out the impact on the kicking game.
No, unfortunately. It worked really well for me last week with Prize Picks. So, man. So, they actually have a couple of defensive linemen who are pretty good. We're clearly targets of the of people in the portal, I think, right? And they were able to hold on, much like they held on to Zay Flowers last year. Boston College did a good job holding on to these guys. They definitely don't suck up front. They're older dudes. A couple of them have a little bit of twitch to them. The Horsey kid is a pretty good run stopper, their nose guard. So that'll be a good test. What I haven't seen really so far is great ability to chase stuff down on the back end, right? So the potential for explosive runs, if you're able to control the front, is definitely there with Florida State's backs, whether it's Benson or Hill or whomever. That potential is certainly there. I don't imagine you'd run Travis that much in this game with Clemson on deck, but I mean, hey, like if they totally overplay the back and you got to do it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We also, I mean, just to be totally frank here, NIU's pass game is terrible, and Holy Cross has a kid that just basically runs around a whole lot, and they ran for like almost 300, but like a lot of it was this quarterback just running around and scrambling because he's pretty quick. I don't know what to make of their pass defense. Judging how like some teams get the corner on them, I would say probably not great in terms of coverage. I don't anticipate that they can cover FSU's receivers very well if they're actually healthy, or not healthy, but like if the game state allows for passing with the wind, Austin Mixon, welcome to the chat as well. Very cool. Mike Lee, shout out to him. So yeah, defensive line is not awful. Linebackers seem to be okay. Defensive backs, I give it a totally incomplete grade. We just haven't really seen them have to cover people this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to tell you guys they suck or they're great, because I watched it, but like, I don't know I'd be surprised if they're good compared to like a Florida State level passing game. I just don't know what the true differential is there. There's some teams on FSU's schedule that I've watched a lot that I have a good feel for. And this is not one that I have a great feel for, honestly. But if we brought on a guest, I don't know they would either, because like, what kind of look are they able to get?
Yeah, to be determined at this point what they're going to look like against a team against Florida State.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be great, but you don't have a whole lot of data points that correlate to anything like that. So
I don't think you would see a lot of tempo this week. I wouldn't imagine. At least not sustained tempo. Like maybe you rep it a drive or two, but I don't think you would go nuts with the tempo here. I don't really want to talk special teams either, because I don't know enough about Boston College's special teams. And like, even if I did, in this kind of wind, they're all just going to be. Yeah.
What do you know about a special teams with 26-mile-an-hour winds? But
yeah,
I expect more from you, sir. One group of people that you won't expect more from is the great team at Congruity. Matt Lewis and his team are people that, as I'm fond of saying, I've worked with at literally every opportunity that I've had. And I'm confident that if you give them a chance, you will think similar. So again, as I say this almost every podcast, I'm happy to make an introduction if you would prefer so. That seems to be a pretty common means of putting the three parties together. And like I said, Matt Lewis, fantastic guy, fantastic company, and we recommend Congruity wholeheartedly around here in Nolecast land. So,
yes, sir, we do. They do a tremendous job for all of our listeners who decided to use them. I'm sure they'll do a great job for y'all's business as well. What are we talking about? All right. As far people want to know about backups getting in the game, Brock Glenn. I think Brock Glenn posted on Instagram about the thumb ligament thing. So yeah, I don't anticipate. Well, certainly he won't play in this game, given what he posted. I don't know if he can be back this year. I haven't seen. I don't think Norvell officially announced that or not. So anyway, yeah, guys, we'll see what his status ends up being officially, but obviously, I don't think he's going to play in this game. If he's, it's just pretty obvious he got hurt. Honestly, like, I mean, they can choose to hold any number of guys they want to, just for load management. I think that's one of the beauties of this team so far. It is like we talked about over the summer, right? We comped them to the Milwaukee Brewers of last year, right? Of, hey, very few positions have negative WAR, even with the reserves. Like how many at bats are you getting from guys who are zeros up there? Not many, right? Like almost everybody on this team can help the football team, can complement the football team in some way. They're like positive value add players. So, I mean, dude, like Verse played like 20 snaps, and Levitt played like 10, and they still whipped a Southern Miss team that's like, I don't know, the fourth or fifth best odds to win the Sun Belt.
yeah,
which is probably like Sun Belt's probably your best G5 league, top to bottom. The American maybe a little better, but like it's a pretty good league for G5. It's not like some FCS MAC league. That was pretty impressive. Like the show of depth. Look how many guys they had ready to play, and it was not a cluster when the backups got in. It's not quite as clean, but like a lot of guys knew what to do and got in and executed. And they were able to, like, they played fast.
Yeah, no, I mean it's and that's not going to be the only time that happens, and I think that's probably one reason why you've had as many guys pay attention and buy in is because this team does what it's supposed to do. That won't be a one off. And yeah, look, if we can sit here on Saturday, if we do an instant reaction or Sunday and look at a stat sheet that has Trey Benson, I'd love to see how you manage his workload too. But Fabian, maybe 12 snaps, Jared, 21 snaps, do it again, roll them into next weekend. And we all know how important next weekend is. And I would, we'll talk about next weekend next week, but would not go around writing off Clemson just quite yet. It's going to be a hell of a challenge. So,
yeah. I know it's an FCS team, but just in terms of like controlling what you can control, the last like 45 or 50 minutes of that ball game, they looked kind of like you thought was maybe like the best case of how smooth they could look. I'm not saying like the receivers are all of a sudden much better because I don't think that they are. But in terms of like the operation of the offense and actually looking like something that Garrett Riley has run at past stops, whether it's at, TCU or East Carolina or wherever it was, right? It started to look more like that. Like, so Clemson does appear to be rounding into form, whatever their peak form is. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. They do play an FAU team that I'm very familiar with this weekend. So I think we'll get a pretty good look at that. Like, I think I have a good feel for what FAU is, and we'll see kind of how they play against FAU. Do we have any mailbag stuff tonight?
Don't think we do.
Okay.
If I missed something, apologies, and we'll get to it next time. But I don't believe I do.
Cool. I think we have, looking back through the chat here for questions. Do we want to give a prediction?
Yeah, definitely want to give a prediction as muddied as it may be because of what the weather and conditions will be. We can update it Saturday morning if it's 9 degrees and sunny, or 9 miles an hour and sunny. But I'll go ahead and throw mine out there. I have this being a 41-13 win for Florida State.
That is almost exactly what I have too. So
Okay.
I'm going to change mine up slightly. I will say, I'll say 38 10, actually, which is kind of lame. I do think they get the backups in early,
Yeah.
honestly. And yeah, if this low 20s to high 20s wind wise is a big difference. For whatever reason, it really is. Like you could pass the ball somewhat in low 20s. High 20s is just, yeah. Awesome, man. Is this the first game we've ever done where like wind was the number one factor? It has to be another one.
No, I mean, like, so the Boise State game got moved, or we would have been
Right.
talking about the weather a lot there. I can't think of anything else that we've done where weather was I mean, maybe there was I want to say maybe there was a Wake Forest game way back in the day where there was a wind, or North Carolina that, from having grown up in that area, it's not like you
Yeah.
get immediate hurricanes, but you still get winds coming in pretty strong up through that part of the state. Yeah, no, I don't ever recall talking about weather as much as we have this game.
The
So
the two worst weather games I can recall in ACC country. Number one by far is the game that Brian Kelly lost to NC State because they kept trying to throw the football during the hurricane,
mm,
like during the actual hurricane. Remember that?
hmm
It was that 2013 or 2014? It was Brian Kelly loses hurricane game. The headline. The headline. This is great. Notre Dame's Brian Kelly defends passing football 26 times in literal hurricane.
mm,
October 8th, 2016. Raleigh, North Carolina. Brian Kelly admitted Saturday he couldn't remember many games that it was this difficult with it in that sentence being throwing the ball. Hurricane Matthew, which made landfall in South Carolina about 200 miles south of Raleigh, brought torrential driving rains and winds gusting up to about 50 miles per hour to central North Carolina on Saturday, at which point the Irish were playing the Wolfpack. 50 miles an hour. They threw 26 passes. That was with Deshaun Kaiser. Notre Dame
yeah.
did not score an offensive touchdown in the ball game. NC State decided to. Brad Kelly says, with the defense that North Carolina State was playing against us, they were putting a little extra guy in the box, putting an extra hat in the box. The safety's dropping in, so we kind of have to throw it. They were throwing some blitzes at us too.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would, Brian Kelly never one to factor in the weather all that much.
Oh,
So,
he went there.
just
Oh gosh.
we'll see what it looks like. Now, the other game I'm guessing that you were gonna was Clemson Louisville. I mean, wasn't that the game that was literally played in a hurricane, or was that
I think it was
Clemson Notre
Clemson Notre
Dame?
Dame.
Clemson Notre Dame. Yeah. The same season, I believe.
Welcome to the
But
ACC
yeah,
Irish.
I remember that one as well.
Deshaun Kaiser was 9 of 26 for 54 yards, though, in the football.
No, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
NC State attempted 14 passes, almost all of them in the first half. They were 5 of 12 for 27 yards.
Okay.
And then the other kid was the running back threw 2 passes for 7 a pop, and they decided to stop doing so. Which is
We'll thank our friends at Homefield. HomefieldApparel.com is the lovely line of vintage products that you can go and get. As we've been saying, 2 or 3 weeks ago, came out with a new line of Florida State stuff. Some great options on there. All of the older options are still there as the goodies if you want to go back and grab some of the first offerings that were so popular. But HomefieldApparel.com, you'll see the teams tabs. You can click on through to Florida State, and they've got a whole new offering of shirts, sweaters, a couple different other things. The bomber jacket, something that we've mentioned, but you can use the coupon code NOLCAST23 for, I believe, 15% off at checkout.
people want to know our thoughts on the all-white uniforms. Do you like the Stormtrooper look?
I mean, I don't love them, but if kids love them, and obviously, if there is a game to do something a little different, it's this one. Is Boston home, Boston BC's home uniforms have a certain resemblance to a lot of our primary colors as well. So I'm not We're not going to spend 6 or 7 minutes talking about it next week. I'll put it that way. But I don't love them. But if kids do and it's fun for them, then absolutely, let's do it.
All right. In order of the uniforms, I do not particularly like the white jerseys, garnet pants look.
Mm-hmm.
The Stormtrooper in like a very limited use case, I'm kind of okay with. I really didn't like the Pro Combat at all, which I'm glad they have not brought that back. But if you're someone who still wears a Pro Combat jersey to a game, I feel like you just have to keep it up now because the team's winning, and like it's at this point it's clearly vintage. I don't really love the All Blacks, but at least if you go with the gold helmet, the All Black looks like a cooler version of like late 90s Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
which was a pretty dope look, especially if you go with like the tall white socks on the bottom. Let me see here. What else do we have? I like the white top, gold pants.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's a classic road look, man.
I like that. Gold. That's one that I would rock a vast majority of the time. I also like the white, all white gold helmet. That's had some great looks to it. It's had some not so great, but I wasn't fond. You had like the two stripe pants that they went with that for a couple years that I wasn't quite as fond with. But yeah, no, man, I'm pretty the home uniform and the traditional away uniform is pretty freaking great. Now I realize I like some variation, and doesn't means that we have to wear that every time. But you've got two consistents that you can fall back on at any time, and know that it looks pretty damn good.
I will say, I think you have to be pretty proud that Florida State. I mean, knock on wood here, because Nike's still the apparel company, but they have never been done completely dirty like how Nike did Florida twice. Like the one ridiculous, it was like UF, Vatek, and like some other buddy. They had like the different color shoulder patch the one time. Remember that? Like it was like a Chris Leak out, like just terrible. And then they also had the ones that were supposed to look like alligators.
Yeah, they had the skin. Those were great.
Like we're honoring the military and literal alligators
and alligators
jersey, and it doesn't actually look. Yeah, like pick one and stick with it. I'm just mainly for me it's the helmet. It's not it like the uniform combos are rarely bad. I don't particularly like the white helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's about all I got on this Boston College game, man. I hope people can find 30 minutes to listen to this before the game kicks, and I hope that it stays somewhat relevant by the time the game kicks.
No, I think it will. Final reminders. I know the weather will be just fine down at Madison Social and Township and everywhere else this weekend. So big thanks to Matt and his team and all that they've done historically to make the Nolecast possible. And I don't think Madso or Township ever needs a reminder, but we'll throw it out there. And as always, our friends over at Charlie Park, Tallahassee's best rooftop bar, and a group that we always frequent ourselves when we're in town and are proud to be able to partner with.
Yes, we do. Everybody going up to BC, travel safe, both there and back. We'll see you all again very soon.